My fascination with tornadoes began like so many others after I watched The Wizard of Oz as a kid. And after that, all of my Barbies used to spend their time preparing for tornadoes to come. So that probably should have been a sign for my parents. I thought tornadoes were mysterious and terrifying and fascinating, and after getting to experience them firsthand, I feel the exact same way.
My name is Laura Zara.
The most important thing is not dying.
I'm a survival and backcountry specialist.
I'm getting caught on every tree branch. Whew. I love antlers.
I have a hard time explaining what I do and what my life looks like.
But it's way easier to just show you.
Sometimes you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you can't always predict where the bears are gonna be. Learn what it takes to become decivilized.
Tornadoes have happened in all 50 states and all around the world, but the term tornado alley is commonly used to refer to an area in the Midwest that commonly experiences a large number of powerful tornadoes. But there's actually several parts of the US where there are frequent tornadoes. They tend to form in areas where cool, dry air meets warm, humid air. Tornadoes tend to happen in spring and early summer, and because summer happens first in the south, they tend to start down there and then progressively move up north as the season continues. But tornadoes have happened at all times of year, even during the winter. There's dust devils and landspouts, which aren't technically tornadoes. They're not attached to a storm, and they're much weaker, but a true tornado is born out of a supercell. Supercells look like a mothership, which is fitting because they look like something that would give birth to a natural disaster. They're basically thunderstorms that have a mesocyclone, which is defined by having a persistent rotating updraft. Side note, they basically eat clouds. You'll see a cloud just being drawn into the side of it, and that's how you know it's a growing storm. I already know I'm gonna make meteorologists mad. I am not a meteorologist. Laura Zara's not a meteorologist. Next, you need instability, which is caused by all these layers of air that are different temperatures. But in order for that to start interacting and doing crazy things, you need lift.
Definitely got some humidity.
So you need something to make that air start rising up. Warm air rises, so basically that air needs to have a temperature that is warmer than the surrounding air. Sometimes it's something geographic that makes that air start rising. Sometimes it's a cold front coming in and pushing that warm air up. But regardless, it needs to start moving up. That air rises up and forms an updraft. And updrafts, when they're strong, can be over 100 miles an hour, which is so crazy. Weather is so exciting. The rising warm air flows up, condenses, forms clouds, and then makes one of my favorite words of all time, cumulonimbus clouds. They're also called thunderheads, and they can store the energy of 10 Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs. So an ideal situation for a supercell that could produce tornadoes in that classic tornado alley area will generally be in late spring, late afternoon, with a strong southeast wind, which is bringing in that moist, warm air from the Gulf of Mexico. Usually about 55 plus dew point, 80-degree temperature, and wind shear. As few as 20% of supercells create tornadoes, and something I learned is that despite the heroic efforts of those people in that really romantic documentary Twister, there's still a lot about tornadoes that are not understood. But if you have a supercell, you should already be paying attention because they are dangerous on their own. Of course, there's going to be a ton of lightning associated with a supercell, and additionally, as the rain cools air, it actually creates a downdraft which pushes out the bottom and can be incredibly strong. Creates these straight line winds that can be really powerful. They can flip over semis, they can knock power poles down. Downdrafts can be super violent.
All right, there is our snapped power pole. That is some force right there.
Then you have hail. Hail's created when you have water droplets that are brought way up in the atmosphere until they freeze. And the stronger that updraft is, the longer it's held up there, bouncing around, growing in size until finally it gets too heavy and the updraft can't support it, and then it hurtles out of the sky.
All right, it looks like it snowed, but it's actually just hail.
And we're not just talking like tiny little ice chunks. We're talking sometimes these things are as big as grapefruits or even bigger. They're not round, they're pretty jagged, and they're like coming at you at 90 miles an hour. So do not underestimate hail. It is not just an inconvenience, it can be deadly.
He completely lost control. He's down in the ditch.
Obviously, if you're in a car and you have hail, you want to stay in your car. It's going to offer you protection. Not going to be great for the car, but it's better than your head getting smashed. A really cool trick I learned is that if you are in a hailstorm and you are in your vehicle, if you park on the leeward side of like a really tall, sturdy building, it's actually going to block some of that hail that's coming out from the storm and possibly save the windows in your car.
All right, so we're tucked beside this grain bin with this looming. There goes the semi. There goes the semi.
If I was out in a hailstorm, my priority would be to protect my head, and if I had my choice, I'd probably be wearing a full football outfit, whatever those are called.
Come on!
But hail itself, even if it's not big, can be dangerous on roadways. One storm in a matter of minutes can create inches of hail on the road, and as you're driving along thinking it's just summer, all of a sudden there's this icy mess on the road. The other problem is it starts to create fog because of the warm temperatures of the air. You might be driving along, you might not even see the hail because of the fog, and all of a sudden you're driving on ice going 70. Not great.
So much hail.
Sometimes from a supercell, you get a wall cloud. It's a lowering from that mesocyclone and it starts spinning independently. The wall cloud usually appears at the bottom of an updraft at the strongest point, and it's basically where tornadoes are usually born. It's kind of the birth canal for tornadoes. Am I allowed to say that? And then sometimes they start to drop funnel clouds, which look like tornadoes, but they don't touch the ground yet. Now, if you look at the bottom of that funnel cloud, when you see debris start kicking up from the ground, that's when you can actually call it a tornado.
Wow.
Now, in order to keep yourself safe from a tornado, you have to know that there's actually a tornado. So the biggest thing is to pay attention to the weather. Honestly, maybe it's just me, but I think it's pretty fun to learn about the weather. And if you know what to look for and you have an idea of what's going on and what the conditions are, then you have a better idea what days you should really be paying attention. I spent some time chasing storms this spring, and I realized that most storm chasers, many who are not meteorologists, have a way better idea of when and where a tornado will potentially hit, when sometimes the people in these towns have no idea that anything's going on, and they're just wondering why all the people all of a sudden showed up in town.
But you can see the spin. I'm not crazy, right? That is spinning.
Holy cow! I learned about this really cool thing through the National Weather Service called the Skywarn Spotter Program. It's a network of volunteers that are trained to keep an eye out for weather hazards with a focus on severe thunderstorms. It's free to join, you learn a lot, and I think it's pretty cool that actually storm chasers and spotters are some of the first ones to call in a lot of the stuff that's going on out there. Even if you don't want to go down the rabbit hole of learning about weather, luckily, we have weather reports, so listen to them. If you know what the weather's supposed to be in your area and if there's a chance of storms, just pay extra close attention to what's going on outside your window. If you're planning a trip outside somewhere, maybe hold off. Don't get complacent if they predicted severe weather just because it's sunny outside. Tornado chasers love sunny days because that sun hits the ground, warms it up, causes convective lifting, and then, so on and so forth. Now there's some simple things that you can look out for. Thunderheads, that mothership, the sky turning really dark, noticing an aquamarine or green colored tint in the clouds, which forms from all that precipitation being held in the air. Large, low, super dark clouds, When you can actually see that spin happening, large hail, the roar of wind that sounds like a freight train, any of these, you're probably gonna wanna seek some cover. Wow. Don't rely on actually seeing the tornado because they can actually be very difficult to see in the rain. They get what's called rain wrapped, where they're almost invisible. There's actually a tornado that crossed the road almost right in front of us, and we couldn't see it because of that heavy rain. A lot of towns and areas that are often hit have tornado sirens, but don't rely on that because if the power gets cut before that siren gets set off, then you're counting on something that might not work. Cell phones also tend to push through a warning when there is a tornado. The problem is they don't push through watches, they push through warnings.
We're like 20 feet away from a tornado.
We are very close to the tornado, yes.
Watches are a little bit lower level. By the time the warning actually gets pushed through, it might be too late to get to where you need to go. This is especially important if seeking shelter isn't as easy as just popping into your basement. There's also weather apps for your phone that'll push through notifications when you're under a severe storm warning or a tornado watch, so it'll get you clued in earlier in the game. There's also a NOAA weather radio, which you can set to set off an alarm. If you don't have a basement, go to a central, ideally windowless room in your house. If you have a bathroom that has a bathtub in it, get in there. Ideally, if you can keep bicycle helmets in whatever your safe place is, it offers an extra layer of protection. A lot of the injuries that are caused from tornadoes are head injuries, so putting a bicycle helmet on is going to help protect you from that. You can also pull mattresses or blankets, pillows, whatever you have over your head, over yourself to protect you from all the debris that can be flying around. Mobile homes are particularly vulnerable, so if you live in a mobile home, make sure that you know exactly where the nearest storm shelter is. If you don't have a designated storm shelter near you, then find a neighbor. If your neighbor has a good shelter, has a basement, anything, talk to them beforehand. Hey, if something happens, can I come and shelter here? Your shelter doesn't need to be big. It's only for a few minutes that you'll have to be in there. The important thing is just that it's really sturdy and ideally that it doesn't have windows. Another thing to note, if you have a supercell that is creating the right conditions for a tornado, don't assume it's just a one and done. These things can kick out several tornadoes, sometimes at the same exact time. In the short time that I was out there, I saw twin tornadoes happen right next to each other. Also, don't assume that the tornado that you're looking at is the same tornado that maybe you saw when you were taking shelter earlier. These things can happen simultaneously. They're not always right next to each other, so you need to really stay aware, not make assumptions, and stay in your shelter if there is any doubt that there's still a storm going on outside. Avoid parking under an overpass. Those things can actually accelerate the wind of the tornado and create a wind tunnel, so stay out of there. You want to avoid parking underneath power poles or trees, anything that's easily going to fall on top of you and crush you in your car. If you do have to ride it out in your car, keep your seatbelt on and protect your head. If you are outside and you can't seek shelter and a tornado is imminent, then get down in a depression on the ground. The winds are actually less strong a couple feet off the ground, so if you get in there, protect your head and stay low, that's your best chance. When the tornado does pass, watch for live downed power lines, watch out for natural gas leaks. You want to be careful because there could be stuff suspended above you that is just ready to fall down and could injure you after the tornado is actually gone. Tornadoes can be horrific and they're also awe-inspiring, but they're definitely best observed from a safe distance and at very least from a safe shelter. If you pay attention to the weather, you'll be able to buy yourself more time to seek shelter and safely ride out the storm. And if all else fails, follow the yellow brick road. Tornadoes? In any case, did I say that 7 times? And also watch out for flying cows.